Let's look at the story of Netherlands, which is a story of water abundance, and the differences in the way that Netherlands deals with its water woes and Arizona does are obviously not just about water scarcity and water abundance, but also the attributes of the community matter a lot. Arizona is the Wild West and attracts people who want to live there, conservative state, and so on. So there is a way of there is a way in which even the cultural aspects, the attributes of the community uh, play into the way water is thought of, water rights, water solutions, etc. Okay, so let's understand a bit about what happened in Netherlands, what's been happening in Netherlands, where Marco Jansen comes from, that we read about before, the co-author of this book. The Netherlands is a small country in Western Europe. The average income per person is one of the highest in the world. This matters. However, 25% of the Netherlands is actually below sea level, as we'll see. Furthermore, some of the biggest rivers in Europe cross the Netherlands on the way to their final destination in the North Sea. So it's not just about rainfall, sea level, but it's also about rivers coming in and potentially causing floods. That's the water abundance part. In contrast to Phoenix, the Netherlands is a place with an abundance of water. Over time, the Dutch have had to solve various social dilemmas to keep their feet dry. Before 800 Common Era, the inhabitants of the precursor of the Netherlands used non-structural measures to keep their feet dry. Nature-based solutions. Such measures, like man-made hills or abandoning areas in times of danger, were the results of decision made by such measures, like man-made hills or abandoning areas in times of danger, were the results of decisions made by individual households. So retreating from the coastline is now often suggested as an adaptation measure, but we know that there are many issues of actually getting developers to move away from the coast and people being asked to move away from the coast. Due to increased population pressure, technological know-how, and finance, there was a rapid increase in the development of structural water control measures after 800 CE. Such measures included dikes and sluices. Construction and maintenance of these structures required cooperation within communities. So you have common pool resources with infrastructure serving as public good to deal with water abundance, and Netherlands is known for its dikes and windmills. Originally, the local communities in the countryside were in charge of all general collective interests and took responsibility for water management as well. So it was a community-based solution after the hard structures began to come in to deal with water issues. Around 1100 CE, however, a new adaptation occurred as water management tasks gradually began to become separated from general public tasks. So you can see how the action arenas have evolved with the same community resource like water. The reason is likely due to the increase in the number and severity of flooding events, as well as a growing interdependence and complexity of the hydraulic works that began to stretch beyond the local scale. We're talking about a tiny country, and within that the scales still matter. Now you imagine zooming out to a country like US, with so many water regimes, with water abundance in some places, serious water scarcity in Arizona, as we saw in the West in general, which is climatologically a dry place, desert, right? Starting at the end of the 11th century and the beginning of the 12th century, the first public bodies charged with governing local and regional water management appeared on the scene, and the phenomenon of the water boards was born. Okay, so new institution. The purpose of the water boards was to construct and maintain the necessary hydraulic structures, providing safety through dikes and dry feet through drainage. Their establishment was recognized by the higher regional authorities, who still held themselves responsible for good water management, but who resigned from their administrative duties. So there was a reorganization of the institutions and action situations. Map of the Netherlands with portion of below sea level, all this stuff here. You can see it's a tiny country here in the corner. North Sea is over here, and you can see this is the region that is below sea level when you zoom in, and you can see the map of Netherlands with the portion here, and you have Belgium and Germany, so land locked on this side, but there are rivers coming in, as we mentioned, which are shown here somewhere, but I won't spend time on that. Since the Napoleonic occupation of the Netherlands in the early 1800s, there has been an increased centralization of water governance over time. Although water boards are still independent organizations, a Ministry of Water Management was created in order to coordinate water management over the entire country. In 1953, a major flood in the south of Netherlands killed 1,800 people, which is a large number for a Western country. In India, that wouldn't be surprisingly large, which is unfortunate, but that's a fact. But number of deaths from natural hazards have dropped tremendously in India thanks to early warning systems and disaster management. This event led to an increased effort to protect the increasingly urbanized Netherlands from potential floods. As a result, there has been a huge amount of investment in infrastructure made to reduce the risks of flooding over the past 60 years. And now Netherlands is one of the leaders in how it's adapting to rising sea levels and expected extreme events, fluvial floods or inundation and storm surge from the ocean, etc. And it has a very good early warning system, meteorological forecast system, and works well with the European Union on many of the issues in terms of future planning as well. Okay, here we go with the windmills, which are so typical of Netherlands. Windmills at the Kinderdyk, near the hometown of one of the authors. I'm sure I didn't pronounce it right, but Kinderdyk, maybe. The history of the water board shows a continuous tinkering with the rules at different levels of organization and spatial scales. Disturbances like floods and the unintended consequences of peat digging have triggered the development of new rules and structures. Peat is, of course, when you have wetlands like this, maybe salt marshes at these latitudes, the vegetation dies and falls into the water, doesn't get respired, so becomes hydrocarbon and keeps getting pressed into peat, which is very good fuel. Okay, the Dutch water boards illustrate how local level governance structures may evolve into a resilient collaboration of multi-level governance structures when national institutions recognize the importance of smaller governance units and work with them rather than destroying them. Obviously, Netherlands is very progressive, and the brief discussion we had on the negotiations between Colorado and Arizona and California, and the Supreme Court decision that took many decades shows you how the states can take hold of water issues as their domain and then start having negotiations or altercations and fights with the neighboring states. Of course, we haven't talked about the continued resolutions between the US and Mexico on sharing of these rivers, Colorado and others. Okay, so taking it from another paper, this shows a little bit of the history of how Netherlands and Poland have evolved on water. So we are talking about climate change requiring water management, adaptation, as well as land consolidation, which is happening in a holistic fashion over the Netherlands. Netherlands has urbanized a lot. It's a very rich country, and you expect it to urbanize, but it also has a lot of investments in smart agriculture and so on. So the intersecting issues between water management and land consolidation include agriculture, water retention, flood protection, nature recreation, landscape infrastructure, etc. So starting here in 1918, end of World War one. I won't read what happened in Poland, but let's look at the Netherlands. So land consolidation and water management are shown in red and blue colors here. 1924, the first Land Consolidation Act came into effect. 1938, first Consolidation Act amended. 54, second Land Consolidation Act amendment. 1959, first Delta Act, which is a water management act. And here 1970s, attention for environment and nature protection got elevated in the government and governance and public institutions as well as people's minds. 1980, integrated water resource management became a well-informed multi-level structure that we just mentioned. 1985, third Land Consolidation Act amendment happened. We won't go into the details of what happened here, but you can go and look up the paper for the details. So here in 1995, attention for climate change began to take more and more prominence. 1996, Act on Flood Defenses, which is very critical for Netherlands. They're very keenly aware of this. 2000 EU water agreements, EU Water Framework Directive was set in motion. 2007 EU Flood Risk Directive came in. 2009 a new Dutch Water Act. 2017 new Flood Risk Strategy, and you can read that Netherlands remains very active on climate change issues, energy, water, food, and water management, as well as adaptation to the issues they face in terms of sea level rise, storms, extreme events, floods, etc. Okay, so let's come back and look at the next issue when it comes to water. Remember, we talked about abundance, scarcity, and distribution. So we will do that in the next podcast if I can find myself out of this. Okay, see you there.